Hey friend, welcome to another episode of Learn from People Who Lived It. I want to put it to you like this. Most of us go into our browser settings and we reset the cache. We clear the history. When the software update shows up for us, boom, we jump on it. Why? Because we know that's going to make our computer and our experience of using the internet better, more efficient. Sure, the old system will get some things done. But when we clear the cache, when we clear the history, when we update the programming, boy, does life change in a moment. I experienced this firsthand a few years ago on my retreat when I was finally able to set down all of those limited beliefs that were holding me back. Everything changed in a moment. And what I love to share with you right now is the amount of freedom that's waiting for you on the other side of that difficult battle. I know for a lot of people, especially if you've experienced some really tough shit on the way up, that stuff can feel heavy. And setting it down can almost feel like you don't care about it anymore, which couldn't be further from the truth. I want you to find yourself in pieces of Elaine Lindsay's story today. Her first hit came at 16, and then several hits after that. And as she says, I'm a slow learner. It took her a long time to overcome those obstacles. So here's my hope for you today as you tune into today's podcast with me, Elaine, and Dr. David Leicken, that you jump on it, that you get on it today, that you start right here, right now, clearing the cache, clearing the browser history, updating your programming so that you can be the most efficient version of yourself. Ready? Let's go.
Find Learn from People Who Lived It wherever you get podcasts. Search it using all one word. Learn from People Who Lived It.
Welcome to another episode of Learn from People Who Lived It.
I'm Elaine Lindsay. I'm originally from Edinburgh, Scotland, but I live in Canada.
Okay. What story are you here to share today, Elaine?
A rather convoluted story. Bits and pieces of my life that became lessons. But as people will see, I'm a bit of a slow learner. It took me a while to get it.
Okay, we have some things in common out of the gate. Who do you hope hears our podcast today?
Anyone who doubts themselves, anyone who feels less than, doesn't know that they're worthy.
So we're going to figure out what that's all about today with Elaine Lindsay. You can see right on the screen if you're watching it, they call her the Dark Pollyanna. And I had to ask Dr. Dave what a Pollyanna was. And he told me that it's a really optimistic person who just always sees the good in things. So on that, Dr. Dave, welcome to the podcast. Great to have you back.
Mathew, it's a pleasure as always.
Yeah. So, you heard the opening dialogue, Dave. This is why she's here. This is who she hope hears this. You want to elaborate on any piece of what she said already?
No, let's just get into it.
All right. Elaine, you are the podcast host of something called the Suicide Zen Forgiveness podcast. And so it seems like a pretty natural place for me to start. Why is that the podcast that you've chosen for yourself? And what is it about your life that lends you to want to be in that space?
When I was 16 years of age, I lost my dear friend Andrea to suicide. And unfortunately, I just vacated the physical being. I just went back to being about 12. I got my hands on any drink or drugs or whatever I could to make sure I did not feel, because I was completely unable to deal with this. The reason for that, I didn't really learn until a couple of years ago. I had had what they call suicidal ideation since I was a little kid. I didn't know what it was. I just knew that if I got in trouble or I burnt my toast or whatever, one of the options for me was, well, I could just end it. 4 years after she died, life had gone on with or without me. I was kind of part of it and yet not. And I was giving someone a lift home at 2 a.m. because they'd been picked up for drinking and driving. And I was stopped by a policeman because my dimmer switch had shorted out. Long story short, I was crushed between 3 cars in front of Andrea's grave. And that became my life for the next 5 years, was rebuilding my leg and putting together the broken bones. I was 7 months pregnant and lost that child. I had massive internal injuries. I fractured my skull. And it was, one would have thought it would be a good lesson. It just made me a very angry 20-something who couldn't quite understand what was left for me. I could no longer skate. I could no longer ski or ride or even walk my daughter, which was devastating to me because I never really had what one would call self-confidence. I was not, I was brought up Scottish and Catholic. So guilt and fear, and don't look in the mirror because that's vanity. And all those things weren't good things. I had a wonderful upbringing. My parents were great. A lot of chaos in our lives because we came to this country with my aunt who was very ill. And we lived 5 hours away from them from the time I was 5, which meant that every time the phone rang, my mother went into panic mode. And in most cases, my father and I would have to drive to Ottawa to go either spend the weekend in the hospital or pick up my aunt and my grandmother. There was always, that other shoe was constantly dropping in our lives. And that was, I guess, part of where the ideation came from. At 5, or I think I was going on 6 when I saw Pollyanna. And for me, that clicked because that was very much that other side of me. I look for the good in everything. I play the glad game every day to this day, and I'm 69 years old now. That came in very handy, and the reason for the dark Pollyanna is the ideation constantly tries to take over. But obviously Pollyanna's winning because I'm still here.
There's a lot that you just kind of came to us with, right? I mean, you skirted over the accident a little bit. You lost a child, you lost a friend, you navigating your life, you're feeling like it's all coming crashing down on you. Dr. Dave, I'm coming to you right away because this is the recipe for a set of belief systems to get set up in somebody. This is the perfect prescription for the vicious cycle to start taking hold and just keep on repeating itself. Right. So give me your thoughts on some of the stuff that she just mentioned in a way that might be helpful for other people that are experiencing not the same but similar circumstances.
Well, Elaine, if I can clarify, you mentioned that your friend died by suicide when you both were about 16. Yeah. Who else was in your family? Did you have any support from your family at the time? Did they have any idea what you were going through after this loss?
My parents and my grandmother tried to support me, but we were Catholic and Andrea was Jewish. And back then, in 1972, it was still in Canada against the law to attempt suicide. So I went into protect mode. Not that I had to, but at school, I had just started a new school in January. Andrea died New Year's night. And when I went to this new school, about a week in, some guy in my English class talked about the stupid girl at this other school who killed herself over a boy. I don't remember much except coming to in the teacher's arms because I was beating the guy over the head. And nobody understood what was going on because I don't even know if they connected his statement with what was happening. He didn't know me. They didn't know me. They certainly didn't know Andrea, and they certainly didn't know that we were friends. So it made me a little bit of a loose cannon at that school. People tended to walk around me gingerly because God knows when I'd go off next.
So if suicide was illegal, how was that then processed into the mix as far as like the community grieving her loss, or like other students that knew about it? Was that a factor as far as how people looked at her death and how people reacted to it?
Well, no, that was part of the problem. I was at a school miles away. My friends, Andrea and Marnie and my friends, were all downtown because I was sent to a parochial school for girls. And in order to get there, it was so far away. I had to be allowed to make friends elsewhere in town. And it was so far away that nobody I went to school with knew what had happened. And at this point, I certainly wasn't going to tell them. Another little thing that I think, Dr. Dave, you need to know. When I was 12 years old, I started volunteering at a huge mental institution about 40 minutes away. And I used to go every Sunday and work
like a
there.
residential type place?
Asylum, actually, a huge, huge asylum. And when I was 15 years old, they got a special dispensation from the province, allowing me to work for the summer with the older kids. They were all 18 to 20. I was 15. I taught swimming for the adult trainable unit. And then I worked in what was called female admission. There was a lot of electroshock therapy and a lot of other things. And 3 days after I got there, a young boy that I went to school with on the bus, he went to a different school, but he was in a home for wayward boys. He kept running away because his stepfather beat him and his mom. I saw him in the yard and said, "Oh my God, did you get a special dispensation too?" He said, "What are you talking about?" So, well, how did you get it? What are you doing here? He said, "Oh, I ran away again, so I'm living here now." And within that summer, I saw him completely change, because I now know that we don't rise to the highest common denominator. We sink to whatever else is there so we can fit in.
I would like to jump in here because, okay, so what I'm hoping is that there's somebody that's paying attention to the podcast right now, and they're starting to see glimpses of themselves in your story, right? They've had some thing happen to them, and it's set up, like I was saying a few minutes ago, it's set up a good belief system in it, set up what they think to be true. Like you said, like it set up a belief system that, yo, we just got to zip it. We can't talk about these things. They belong. Right. Those are my inside thoughts. They don't get to be outside thoughts. And now what I'm going to ask you to do, Elaine, is to kind of like switch gears a little bit. And in Buddhism, there's this thing called Mahu Madra, which basically means like step outside of yourself, watching yourself. So like remove yourself from your physical being in a sense, and just look at the way that you're operating your life. Okay. So I'm asking you to kind of do that same thing now as your older, wiser self who's learned more along the way over the years, to look back on that 16-year-old girl who thinks in her head, the belief system is that I can't talk about this. There's no way around it. I just have to keep this inside. What have you learned now over the years as the older, wiser self? And what would you say to the 16-year-old who's struggling, who believes that to be the truth?
First, I'd say don't keep everything inside. You are not a one-person army. Okay, and all the trite things, no man is an island, all of those things, those adages are out there because many of them are very true. And at 16, I should have allowed my parents to help me. I should have let someone in. But For whatever reason, because my aunt was so sick, it was almost like I didn't want to be overly needy or
Yeah, a
take
burden,
the
right?
focus away. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you don't want to
yeah.
be the squeaky wheel. You don't want to
Oh
be
my
the
God,
squeaky
no.
wheel, especially when there's other wheels that are squeaking. And it's like, and you just said I was raised really religious, so of course I was too. I know all about that guilt and shame bullshit, and I know how that just like completely owns your head, and you feel bad for even like broken arm. You're like, I'll be okay. I'll put some ice on it, right? And you get to a point where you don't want to be anybody who gets in the way of other people's happiness or their life. Yeah, keep going, Dave. What do you want to say?
Well, kind of a teaching point.
Yes.
My experience dealing with suicide is suicide has fertile ground when you don't see any other options to move forward, right? So if you're 16, you can't afford to live on your own, you can't get out of the situation, you can't talk about it. So now what options do you have? I can run away from home, I could end my life, right? So now all of a sudden that starts to become in your mind a viable option, because at least there's some direction that you can move. Right now, in reality, there's other things that are options, but when you're kind of stuck in that mode, you can't see them at the time.
Yeah. And so again, we would say to that 16, that 17-year-old, we would say, you're not, as you said, a one-person army. Please allow somebody to come in and try to give you some help. Please allow another voice or a mentor, parent, friend, counselor, teacher. Like we all have a couple of people that, in fact, Dave, I said this to Dave yesterday. We were hanging out working on a project, and I said, Dave, I'm going to tell you something that I don't think I could say in front of a lot of people, right? And I have a level of trust with Dave, and I think all of us have that person who we feel like we could say just about anything to, and they wouldn't judge us. And so, what I think we're walking towards is to anybody out there who's kind of feeling that isolation right now. Like, let's really look for that person who you can just start to open the can of worms with, and then let them help you a little bit. Like, but just the option of keeping everything inside is going to be crushing for far too long.
Right. And we all go through seasons.
Yes.
There can be some very dark seasons where it just seems like everything is oriented against you. And, no matter where you turn, something else goes wrong and it's another struggle. If you can just keep moving forward and keep plowing through, things eventually settle down. And when you get on the other side of it, there is gold. There are lessons to be learned, and there are things that you can draw out of the pain that make you stronger, wiser, better equipped to help other people going through it. There's so many good things that come out eventually if you can kind of hang in there and work through it. And not allow the darkness to completely take over.
And when you realize that some of these things are temporary, and the fact is, I lived through all that pain, I can go through one more thing.
I see a really difficult balance that has to be maintained. So on the one extreme, and this doesn't specifically apply to you, but more generally, on the one extreme is externalizing everything and saying, well, all these bad things keep happening to me and it's always everybody else's fault, and not taking responsibility for things. And then on the opposite extreme, blaming everything on yourself, right? I'm just a bad person. I'm a shit magnet. Everything keeps coming to me. No matter what I do, I'm never going to get ahead. God must hate me. Nobody, my parents don't love me, right? So somewhere in the middle is the truth of it, is the reality of it, and trying to figure out like, so what is my responsibility? What am I capable of doing to help move things forward? What things do I have just no control over? And it's just, I just was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And, so finding those appropriate boundaries and then trying to work within that, and then trying to find optimism on top of that. Right. So there has to be some level of acceptance at some point of the things that you can't change, and the things that, kind of the hand that you were dealt, as people say. and then trying to figure out, okay, so this is my platform now. How can I build on this and make something positive and be able to love other people and increase my capacity to love other people and accept that love from other people.
This is good advice. I want to start to wind us down a little bit, and I want to get into something that, so you don't know this about us, but Elaine, Dave and I have, we're about to release into the world a 6-week wellness course, for lack of a better term. And basically, we created this program to get people out of their own way, get people out of ruts, to get people unstuck, correct? Call it what you want. Okay, there's 6 pillars in our Revive and Thrive, is what we call it, series. And one of the most important pillars, we believe, is humor. You spend some time as a stand-up comedian, which may surprise some people, may not. But alas, it's part of your story. So, okay, when Dave and I talk about humor, we approach it from 2 different perspectives. The first one is the ability to laugh at other things, for sure, right? But the harder one is the ability to laugh at yourself. And, when things happen, just not take them so seriously. So I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions on using humor as a therapeutic means. And then Dave, whatever she says, man, just pile on it a little bit, and then we'll wrap up and we'll let people get on their day. But this is a really important, useful tool, this idea of humor.
Yes, it is. Oh my God, it so is. I actually did 3 minutes open mic at Podfest on Saturday night, and a comedian from Indiana, Jacoby Ray is his name. He was the headliner. He told me I was effing awesome and I should stick with comedy. People kept coming up and saying it was really good. So I'm very thankful for that. But even at the darkest times, like in the 5 years after the accident, I would have a cast on one leg or the other, from my toes to my hip.
Oh my
and they were working on whichever leg. And sometimes I'd only have like a week in between. So you see the same people, it's like, no, that was on your left. No, it wasn't. What are you talking about? I like to play with people. But I got one cast, and I was going to a wedding of friends. So I got the guy who did the cast to make it match my wedge shoe. And he said, Elaine, this is not a good idea. I said, yeah, I want to do that. He said, but it's not going to be good all the time. I didn't think about that. It meant for the next 2.5 months, I had to wear those damn wedge shoes everywhere I went, because they were like 4 inches high. And I couldn't wear any other shoes because I had to be that high up. I used to use my cast like my purse. So I would stuff my money in the top of the cast. And one time, Red was taking off. His name was Red, the guy that took off the cast. He was taking off one of my casts, and he said, so finders keepers, right? What? Not thinking, yeah, whatever. Just get this thing off me. And he goes, all right. He found $10.
Yeah, there it is. There it is. Yeah, it's a critical piece. Dave, put your final thoughts on using humor to help you out in those difficult times.
I can't imagine getting to the point of doing stand-up, but my sense of humor can go pretty dark, and I find something to laugh about in pretty much every situation. I could be in intensive care with a family member and find something funny. And granted, not everybody appreciates it. Sometimes I have to kind of keep the humor to myself and just kind of grin and think about the inappropriate thought in my head. But that sense of humor can get you through some pretty dark periods. And, if you're dealing with a lot of medical staff and stuff like that, being likable and being enjoyable to visit means you get better care. People look forward to coming in and caring for you, and you have a chance to be a blessing to them and brighten their day, and you get the things done that you need to.
Yeah, such good advice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think even as a kid, I wanted to be a stand-up. But then my excuse for years was I couldn't really stand up, so screw that.
Good for you. Good for you.
And I didn't like being seen, right? Because I didn't like anything about me. And I just decided in 2018, you know what? Things are changing here. I'm going to do this because I'm great. And I've been at 2 different clubs and now down there too. And I think if you can laugh at yourself, I've always laughed at me because I can be a bit of a klutz. I can do pretty silly things. But if you can't laugh at yourself, oh my God, it's hard to be that serious in life.
And I find it's useful to laugh at the irony of things. You know, sometimes so many difficult things can come at you all at once. It's like, okay, what now? Seriously? Okay, this is what's now. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
We'll
if everybody's okay with it, I want to wrap with a little bit of a story. So, my mom, who's no longer with us, was here in Phoenix for a visit once upon a time. This was about maybe 6 months before she passed away. And we were driving to the coffee shop to get my mom her favorite drink, which is a mocha. She sucked mochas down like nobody's business. And we get to the coffee shop, we order the mocha, we're driving home back to my house, and my mom is seemingly hanging on to this cup with, I don't know, maybe the pinky of her hand. Like so what I'm getting at is she's not holding onto the cup very tightly at all. And a guy pulls out, we have to get on the brakes pretty hard, and the fucking coffee goes everywhere. Like it explodes in my car. It's on my dashboard, it's on my windshield, it's on my seat, it's on the floor, it's in the cup holders, it's on my radio, it's everywhere. And I was in the worst damn mood about that moment. And I got quiet, I shut down, I was pissed off cleaning it up for 2 hours. And, you know, I've had some time to reflect now because mom's not here anymore. And the reason that I tell this story is because that was a real missed opportunity for me. Because here's what I know in my heart. If I had seen that scene in a movie, I would have laughed my ass off. We miss it. We miss these opportunities to let humor into our lives. And when we do that, I missed out on an opportunity to connect with my mom and to laugh with my mom and to share that moment with my mom. And instead now, all I can do is think back on how much I missed it, how much I missed that moment, right? And I don't want other people to miss those moments. I don't want you to miss those moments. I don't want you to give up on an opportunity to, have a gut laugh about something that, what are you going to do anyways, right? What are you going to do anyways? So I felt like an appropriate story to share with everyone as we winded down today because, I'm guilty of it too. And what can you do? Elaine, we can't thank you enough for sharing your journey with us. We'll send everybody to your podcast. It's right there above Dave's head, Suicide Zen Forgiveness. There you go, buddy. And have a look. We'll get links in the show notes if you want to connect with her. And my hope and my wish, Elaine, is that one day I'm turning on the television or one day I'm going to the comedy club and there it is. Elaine Lindsay, the Dark Pollyanna, is on the stage. That would be amazing.
Well, from your lips to the universe's ears.
Let's go. Elaine, thank you very much. Dr. Dave, you too, buddy.
Hey, thanks. Take care, everybody.
And make the most of your today every day.
We have 3 goals with Learn from People Who Lived It. 1, to help you feel less alone. 2, encourage you to seek out a coach, a therapist, a church, anyone who can help you get through your journey and find some healing. 3, when you're ready, share your story with us.
Find Learn from People Who Lived It, wherever you get podcasts. Search it using all one word, Learn from People Who Lived It.